Okay, for the first digital assignment of 8013 Comp Design, we are going to get started with a site model for all of the projects at the Haverford School. And in doing that, we're going to import in CAD for our site layout and topography. We're going to set the project's location in true north. We're then going to make the topography of the project. And then we're going to add subregions. So it sounds like something interesting, but subregions really is just adding in your topography sidewalks, streets, and anything else that is different than the normal terrain. We're then going to establish some basic levels that can always change once you work on your project. We're going to learn a little bit about massing and making conceptual masses around on the site. And in doing that, we're probably also going to want to make these masses in design options so that you can toggle between different types of massing and compare them to each other. And speaking of comparing them to each other, we're going to do that with some simple energy analysis of your massings and a simple solar study so you can understand how the sun passes over the site. So to get started, obviously open up Revit, and we're going to start a new file. And we're going to start an architectural template. And with this is our first view. It's just a floor plan, and it shows some basic elevations are already in the file. And you can see these elevations are listed right here. And there's two levels to start off with in a site plan. For those who haven't used Revit before, we won't spend too much time on just explaining Revit. We want to get into the commands to understand, to learn better by actually using them. So up here is the ribbon. The ribbon is your main menu with all of your commands, and it has different tabs based on what you're going to be doing. A lot of what is going to be done when you're modeling is on the Architecture tab and on the Structural tab. Those are your main two modeling pieces. You're going to probably be in this one most of the time, or in the Architectural tab. Once you get into drawing and detailing, you're going to find yourself more in the Annotate tab. That's when you're adding line work and changing line work and adding filled regions and hatch patterns. Other pieces we're going to use, obviously, we're going to use almost all of these tabs, but massing and site is for your conceptual masses and making your topography. And views are creating your different views. So your 3D views, your sections, your details, your elevations. And so to get started now with the project, what we're just going to do is get you started with the site plan for your project and give you a head start on making the topography for your design. So to do that, the first thing I'm going to do is insert the CAD file that I've included on Blackboard. And you have two ways to insert CAD. You can link it or you can import CAD. Import CAD means that AutoCAD file is stuck in your Revit model and will never change. Linking CAD means if you are still working on that AutoCAD file and updating plans, you can link to your AutoCAD file, and that way if you change your AutoCAD file, it'll also update in Revit. So that's good if you're planning on updating your CAD while you're working in Revit. So we're going to link this model, even though I don't think we're going to be updating the site plan. We're going to link it just because. So with that, should be this simplified version of what Bob sent out earlier. All of the preset sizes are good. It is auto-detecting the units to import, and it's positioning correctly, and it's placing it at level 1. And I'll show you what that means later. So we'll hit open. It's okay. And you'll see if you zoom out, that this is the file. And it comes in with north facing up. And what I have done to the original file that Bob sent out is I've made it a little bit easier to make a topographic model. So I'll show you how he did that. First of all, in order to see it, we need to make a 3D view. You can see you have no 3D views for you here. You have floor plans, ceiling plans, and elevations. So to make a 3D view, you can do two things. You can click on this little house up here, it makes your default 3D view. Or you can go to View, 3D View, and do Default 3D View. Click on that. And you can see we're looking at this as an axon now. And you have a view cube, where if you've used AutoCAD or many other Autodesk pieces of software, the view cube is their popular thing that shows up in 3D. If you hold down the Shift button and your middle wheel, you're able to do your 3D orbit. So when we do our 3D orbit, you'll see about 300 something feet above the 0, plane is your topography. And the reason that is what I did was simplified the model and made all the topography at its actual above sea level height. So this is all accurate, and it's all in its own layer in AutoCAD, which is going to make it much easier to make your topographical model. So let's do that now. In one move, we're going to make all of this into a 3D model that you can then cut, push, and pull with your design. And then we're going to use some of the line work in this one to help make your subregions for your roads, sidewalks, and track, and whatever else you want to divide out of this. So to make your site, go to the Massing and Site tab up here. And we are going to create a topo surface. By default, what it wants you to do is place a point. And what this point would do is it would be at the 0, elevation, and it'll start creating a shape. But what we're going to, instead of tracing these points all along and making many points, since we already have this line work and we have it at the right heights in AutoCAD, we're going to actually create from an imported model. So and the other thing is just as a tip, if you hold your cursor over any one of the Revit commands, it will show you something like this, and it'll explain to you how that command works. So this comes in handy if you're trying to do something and it's not working out for you. Look and see, as your first stop, look and see here and see if it helps you understand what the command does and if it does what you're looking for. So create from import, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the import instance. And now let's see how it lets me select that AutoCAD file, since it's the only thing in the model. Click on that, and what it asks you is what layers do you want to use to create this topography. What we'll do is do check none, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's one called topo. So hit OK, and what it does is it makes every point of all these polylines into an accurate point on the topo model. So if we zoom in, you can see every one of these lines, wherever it had a point, it made it into the topo surface, which is good. That's what we wanted. Except that there is a little odd point here. And if I rotate around this, you'll see there were some points that were actually on the 0, level. So what we can do, and what you can always do with any of these points, is when you're editing the topo surface, and you know you're editing it because it says modify and edit surface here, and you get the green check and the red X, is you can edit anything on this surface. So what I'm going to do is you can either click one at a time and hit delete, or select them. You see all of these points turn blue, and hit delete. And that gets you back up onto the main surface. We are still technically editing this topo surface because we have not hit the green check mark. But once we do that, we can always come back and edit it again, but we'll be done. So let's hit the green check. We have a 3D surface that we can now start working off of. Alright, so some things you can start doing. One is we might want to apply a material to this surface. Right now, you can't see. We're in a hidden line view, and you can tell that down here. So come down, right down here to your visual style, click, and we're in a hidden line view, which you can see through it, make solid shapes, and it just shows the line work. What you can also do is do a shaded render, and you'll see that by default it makes your topography brown. So let's click on your topography. Oh, I missed. I clicked on the AutoCAD file. If you hover over it, you see it tells you what you're about to select. See how it says topography surface? So now if I click, I get that surface. The materials by category, by default, that's normally makes it just dirt. So I'll go back and do that again real quick. So in order to change that, click on the category and you get this little gray box in the corner with some dots in it. Click on that, and then you can now select any type of material. I'm hoping there's a grass in here. There is not. So what we can do is clear that. See if there's any kind of site materials in here. Nope. We'll go to create new material. Right now it's on default new material. So we want to rename this. We'll call it grass. And we'll get back into materials later. But for now, in shading, we're going to want our grass to be a green color. We're not going to worry about surface pattern, and we're not going to worry about appearance yet. Appearance would be if you're rendering how that looks. We'll come back and do all of your materials in a later class. But now, since I changed it to grass, at least our site should be green. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start adding some subregions. I'm not going to add many. I'm just going to show you how to add a subregion and what it does. And that way you'll know how to add your street sidewalks, parking lots, and anything else you might need to add. So to do that, what we're going to do is I'm going to keep drawing in 3D, and at some point we can start drawing in 2D out of these plans, but let's keep drawing in 3D just as we're getting used to the program. So I'm going to click top so I look down on the site. And what I'm going to do is I want to draw in that track that's out here. But one thing you'll notice right away is you can't see the track because it is underneath the 3D model. So the same way we switched the shaded render from hidden line, we can also switch the wireframe. You can also use the quick keys and just type in WF for wireframe, HL for hidden line, or SD for shaded. That way you can toggle between different visibilities. So with this, I'm going to create a subregion. And what a subregion is it keeps the topography of your topo model, but it makes a new piece inside of it that you can apply a different material to. And it's really as simple as that. The advantage to it is that if we apply a different material for this track, and it's built onto the topography, if you come back and change the topography and it affects the track vertically, it will just rise up and down, and it'll keep its shape and plan. And that way you can play with your topography while having subregions, and it'll all be parametric, and it'll all play off of itself. So what you can see is once I select make a subregion, you again get that modify command the same way when we're editing the topo surface. So you get a red X and the green check, and that is, while you're modifying it, that's all you can do. You can't do anything else except modify or create a subregion right now. So you can draw a subregion in with a box or a line or arcs or any other kind of shapes, but since we have these nice lines that we can trace, we're going to trace them, and we're going to use the pick lines command. And one nice thing is if you watch, the pick line only wants to select the arc that it was drawn in AutoCAD. But if you use the tab button while you're hovering over this, while it's blue, hit tab once, and it'll actually connect every line that's touching to itself. And this works on a lot of different commands. It works when you're building walls in Revit. It works when you're building lines and details. You can select lines that are all touching each other. So what I'm going to do is, rather than trace and do many clicks all the way around, I'm going to come in, make sure I have the outer line, hit tab once and click once. Of course it moved lines on me, so I'll do that again. Pick line, make sure I'm on the inside, tab once and click. You'll see there's that pink line that goes all the way around now. So that's the inside of the track, and then let's just do the outside of the track. And again, I can draw lines however I want, whether they're shaped like this, but I'm not going to because I have a good shape to trace. You can always come back and delete lines that you've drawn. You don't have to cancel the whole thing. So hit tab once, click, and that wraps all the way around again. So now, if I hit check mark, let's see if that worked. So now we should have a different topo surface on there, or a different subregion within the topo surface. So if I hit SD, you'll see it went back to the default material, which is brown. But now we have a track. So this can be done for all of your sidewalks and your streets. But the key is you have to make sure that you're making closed shapes without overlapping lines. So while you're doing this, you want to make sure that all your shapes are closed and you don't have any lines on top of lines. And if it gives you that error message, always click show so that you can see any problem you might have. I'll do one more. I'll do the diamond of the baseball field, because I don't think this actually completes. I think I have to draw in some pieces. So to get to the top view, you can click on the very top of the cube. I'll zoom in. I'm going to go back to wireframe. I'm going to do that by coming here or typing WF wireframe. And I'm just going to do the inner diamond. So we're going to make sure we're on the massing and site tab again. Click subregion. This one I'm going to do a combination. I don't want to just cheat and do the tab trick. I'll draw the straight lines as straight lines. You can see it snaps to endpoints. If I hit the tab button, you can toggle between how you're snapping to. And when I get the square, that means that's the endpoint. I'll hit escape. Do it over here again. Tab until I get the endpoint. See, sometimes you have to pay attention. That moved on me right at the end there. So I'm going to delete that line. This is already a complex file with this AutoCAD. Tab, got it. Escape. Hover over it, hit tab again until it gives me that endpoint. There we go. Get started on the endpoint there. Hit tab until I get it. There. And now, again, you don't have to do the same command all the way around. So I can draw straight lines, and then I can draw arcs, and as long as they're all connected together, that's good. So I will just, here, I'll draw arcs. Just like that. Hit escape to get out of that original arc command. Do it like that. I'm going to tab until I get the endpoints again. Alright, last one. Do the arc command. Now, before I hit the green check, I just want to show you the error message that happens if, let's say, these weren't connected. Say I missed that. If I try and close this now, you get this error message that says lines must be in closed loops. So what it also, you'll notice it does, is it gives you a preview of what's happening. So you see these two little orange spots are showing you where the error is. This is all good. But right there, those aren't connected. So if you'd quit sketching, you're going to lose everything you did. So you want to hit continue. And you'll promise Revit that you'll fix it. You can drag that point back to where it's supposed to be. Hit the green check. Everything's happy. And I'm going to type in SD, or I'll come here and hit the shaded render. And make sure we have a dirt baseball diamond. Alright. Alright, so with that, the next important thing, before we get too far, is to make sure that we are actually on the right spot for this site. So right now, Revit likely thinks this site is in Boston, because that's where it defaults everything to. So we're obviously not in Boston, we're out in Lancaster Avenue, and let's make sure it understands that, and it understands which way is the correct north, and we can go from there. So we're going to go to Manage. You'll see there's a project location. Also, your menu might look slightly different from this. I'm doing this video on a laptop, and so when Revit gets squeezed on its screen size, it will rearrange the ribbon slightly. But down here, there's project location. Let's click on that. Oh, I'm sorry. Just plain location. Click on that. And let's see where Revit has us. Oh, well, you know, we're in Boston. So what we want to do is put in the address. And sometimes you can even do something like searching for the actual school. Let's see if this works. Nope, alright, didn't work. So what we're going to do is write on the handout, copy that, and put it in here. And go ahead and find that now, Revit. Alright, we can zoom in. Make sure that looks correct. And this site looks pretty familiar. And you can always move this around if you want to be more refined, but this is pretty close. Yeah, since if you really want to get picky and put it right on the building, you can actually move it and put it right on the building. But that's pretty good. So we're going to hit OK. And now we're in the right site. And since our AutoCAD file came in facing north, we are oriented in the correct way, which is good. Alright, so next, we should start thinking about our massing. So what would help before we get to massing is to make sure our levels are in the right height. And by right height, I mean close to where our topography is now. You obviously don't know where your refined levels or your new building are going to be, but let's get them close to where they could be. So to do that, we're going to go into here, and we're actually going to go to one of your elevations. I'm going to click on the north elevation. So here, what we have is, that's your topo surface, and then you also have your CAD file. And down here, these little lines, these are your levels. So right now, I'm going to select both of them. And to select both of them, you click on one and hold down Control and click on the second one, and you got both of your levels. And I'm going to move them way up. I'm going to move them up about, let's say, about 359 feet. And you'll see what that does is, because our linked CAD file is tied to this, tied to level 1, that actually moved the CAD file. Since we probably don't want to do that yet, I'm just going to hit undo, which is this button up here, or Control Z, like every other program. So what we'll do is we'll try and create some new levels too. So I'm going to move level 1 up. I'm sorry, level 2 up. And you can type in where you want it to be. So let's make this one. If you click right on the numbers, you can tell it where you want it to be. So 359 feet. And we can even call this one ground. What this is just asking is it wants to see if you want to rename your floor plans to the same. Say yes. Click on that. You can, once you have it clicked, your modified tab comes up. You can hit copy, and let's make a copy. It doesn't matter how far away you make it, because I'm going to say this one should be at 370 feet. Let's say 371 feet. I'll call that one level 2. By clicking on the name of the level, you can rename it. Alright. So another thing we're going to want to do is maximize 3D extents right now, because this site's pretty big. So click on this, right click on it, maximize 3D extents. And we're going to do that to both of these so that we know they're cutting through where we're actually going to build our model, which is over here. Alright, let's hop back down to our 3D view. And what we want to do now is model some of the existing buildings. So I'm going to go to a top view. I'm going to type WF for wireframe. And I'm going to just block model some of these existing buildings. You can see this blue outline for the existing building. And to do that, we'll go to Massing and Site. And we'll make an in-place mass. Normally masses aren't shown in every view. So what it's doing is it's telling us that it's turning them on for this view, since I obviously want to draw a mass. But if you ever find, if you're in another view over here or another 3D view and something you spent time massing is not in it, you just have to go to your visibility graphics and turn masses on. And I'll show you how to do that. So this is going to be mass number 1. Same thing. We can use the pick line tool. We say that we probably, on your options plane is what this is called. And the placement plane where we want to start this mass is actually, let's say we're starting at the ground floor. Use the pick line command. If I click tab again, if I don't click tab, it's only going to select one line. If I click tab, it's going to select them all. Of course, I want to select it all, so I don't have to click everything. And I click once. And you'll see it didn't actually select everything, it stopped. It kind of got lost over here. So we'll come back and correct that. But you'll see all these little locks. We'll get into that more in other classes, but what this is it's asking if you want to lock this new line that you drew to the line in AutoCAD. And that's something where if you want it to be parametric with your AutoCAD file as you update it, you can do that because it'll lock to that line. But I don't want to do any of that right now, so I'll escape. And I'm going to delete the extra lines in here. I have to do that by, I think, tabbing to select one line at a time. See, right now it wants to select all of them. Hit tab once, delete that line. I'm just pushing the delete button. Delete. Tab once, click, delete. I'm going to finish this manually. Alright, that should be a closed shape. So what I want to do is spin this back up so I can see where we are in 3D. You can see this thing's already starting to get pretty complicated. Click on the shape we just made and we're going to say create form. Click on that. It gives a height to it automatically. You can always adjust that height by clicking this blue arrow. You can move it, or you can click on the dimension string here. And let's say this building is 60 feet tall. Hit the green check so that mass is complete. We can always come back and edit it later. And I'm going to switch back to a shaded view. And you'll see now we have a mass on the site. So we can do this for all the existing buildings. You can make more complex masses by making several different shapes in one mass and joining them together. And we'll go through some of that. Now I'm going to go back to my top view. Type WF for wireframe. And I'm going to make this building. In place mass 2 is fine. See how tab works, it's not going to get all the way around. For here, it looks like we have some extra lines. So I'm going to hit tab and delete these ones here. Push the delete key. I'm not going to worry about showing the existing Wilson Hall right now because, again, this is just more practice. So I'm going to get this line, and this line. So we have a completed perimeter all the way around the building. Click on that, hit create form, solid form, and if we go back to the shaded view. One thing is I think we drew this on level 1, which is a little low, as you can see. So what I can do is I should be able to change that. Say make it ground. I did that in the option plane right here. I might have done that quickly. And we can always change the height. By default, that one's at 120 feet, which is a little tall. That building might be at best 50. And obviously this one's sticking out of the ground a little bit. If you want to, you can click on the bottom, tab until you just select the bottom plane, and you can actually move the shape down. And you can start making other masses on top of this as needed. But that's how you can make some simple masses. Alright, so the next step would be to begin thinking about massing on your site. So we'll go over in class how to make more masses for your actual design. But for now, we're going to close this, and I'm going to show you how to begin your solar studies for the site. So to do that, we can duplicate this view, because what you should always have is have a 3D view for just plain modeling, and then we're going to have another 3D view where we're probably going to hide a lot of this extra CAD work that we don't want to see. So I'm going to right click on this and say duplicate view and rename it. I'm just going to call this one the 3D Axon, and that's going to be our clean view. And for each view, you get view visibility graphics, and you can hide things such as the CAD. You can hide it with the visibility graphics command, which is right here under the View tab. And I can go in, click on that. I can say I have an imported category. It's this. And we can hide that by unchecking it. Okay, so once you've hidden that imported category, you hit OK, and that'll go away. And it'll keep you just with your Revit model, which is looking clean. So the next thing is we're going to make sure we are casting shadows. To do that, you'll see this down here. There's this blue ball with a red X, and that's your shadow command. Click that, and your shadows turn on. You can see our site's actually casting a shadow down on the ground. And what we should do is try and change the materials of these masses, because the masses right now are translucent and they're not casting shadows. So I'm going to edit in place. I'm going to select this mass by pushing the tab button. Material by category. It's bringing us to the grass material, but I think we just want to do default wall. Hit OK. And finish that mass, and you'll see that that mass now casts a shadow. This one doesn't. So we'll click on that one. Do the same thing. Edit in place. So now we can edit it. Hover over it, hit tab once, click, get the mass. Click on the material in the properties dialog. Get that little gray box. And we're going to say you're a default wall too. So cast a shadow. And hit finish mass. Alright, so now we can see shadows. So now let's control our sun. And one thing that's good to do is to make three different views for the different times of year and the different sun settings that you're going to be seeing each one of those days. So we are going to come to your sun settings and click on here. Let's turn the sun path on, and you'll see what that is. Oh, that's good. We should be saving the project at this point before we lose all this work. Should be something like that for your Revit file. Hit save. Continue with the current settings, it's okay. What that's just saying is we don't have a real sun path yet, because you'll see in our sun settings it's probably light from right or something like that. So we'll click on the sun settings, go to the actual sun settings dialog, and see how it says in settings, in setting, lighting, and it's just coming from a random angle. what we're going to do is say we want a single day, and let's do summer solstice, sunrise to sunset. Don't think it makes a difference, but you can play with the date and say I would like it to be this year. Again, don't think that makes a difference. Time interval, set it to every 15 minutes. And the ground plane is actually at the ground level with the way we set up this model. And hit OK. And you can see it's just before the sun rises, so we are not seeing much. There's your sun, and here's your sun path. And now the fun part is you can do a preview solar study. If you come down here and click on the sun again, preview solar study, you'll see that this comes up in your option plane, and hit play. And you see the sun come up. So this is your summer solstice. As you get your concept in there, you can actually see how the sun passes over your design and what it does. So since this is set up already, what we can do is duplicate this. So I'm going to come over here, right click on the 3D axon, duplicate. And now what I'm going to do is rename this summer solstice. And what that means is it'll keep these sun settings in that view. So you can keep this 3D view alive right here with the sun path and everything on it, and always come back and see how your summer solstice behaves. What we can also do is duplicate this and rename it winter solstice. And the only change we have to make in this view is actually make it the winter solstice, which is as easy as clicking on that. Follow the same settings, do sunrise to sunset, and let's make the time interval every 15 minutes so your animation's a little smoother. If you were ever going to compare these animations to each other, you might want to set the same, don't do sunrise to sunset, have everything start at like 5 a.m., go to 10 p.m., so you cover the worst case scenarios and all of your videos the exact same length. Change this, type in 2015. Hit OK. And you can see the sun has very significantly changed its angle. So now, if I could go back here, preview solar study, you'll see it's very different. Alright, last one. Duplicate this view. Let's do one of the equinoxes. So we're going to do the spring equinox. Again, the only thing that we need to change is your sun settings. Spring equinox, sunrise to sunset. Every 15 minutes, ground plane should be at ground. I think I actually might have forgot to do that at the last one, so I'll go back and change it. And we can run that solar study too. There you go. Let me just check and see that I got the winter solstice at the right ground plane. Inside it's sun settings. I didn't. We want that to be on ground. That gets it up higher, so it's not 300 feet below us. It's right at the right ground plane. So you definitely want to make sure you get the right site, you get the right north orientation, and you get the right ground plane. So that is the basics of what we're going to go through. If we have time at the end of class, we'll try and get through an energy study. But right now, this is already a lot of steps for everyone to follow. So that's it for the first digital lab. And what we will look for is for you to upload this model to Blackboard, and just so we can see that you followed through and that you've put in some of your design concepts. So if you have any questions, you can always email me. My email is on the syllabus. It's matt.carp@temple.edu. Thank you.